So Katrina, we're really, really honored and excited to be able to host you to talk all about ethics in design in the age of AI. So let's have a big round of applause for Katrina Alcorn.
And I'm going to take a moment to say thank you, Preet, for being an amazing community leader. I've really been impressed. Yeah, let's give him a round. Okay, so hopefully my slides are coming up soon. While we wait for that, I'm going to start with a little story. So I'm wearing an Apple Watch. I don't know if you can see it under my sleeve. Can anyone else wearing an Apple Watch today? Yeah, I can like barely see you. Also, the glasses don't help. All right, well, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but this happens to me all the time. I have this tendency to use my hands when I talk, and I think that is Siri's cue. She thinks I'm talking to her, and then she'll interrupt me. She'll say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, and it'll be really loud. I'll be in the middle of an excited conversation, and then I usually yell at her. Does anyone ever do this? Anyone yell at Siri? Yeah, I see some hands. Okay. So this happened to me recently. I was talking to a designer on my team named Adam, and we were actually talking about AI, so I was really excited. I was waving my hands, and Siri interrupted, and I yelled at her, and then I turned to Adam for sympathy. And I said, don't you hate it when that happens? It's so annoying. And he was silent for a moment. Now, the thing you need to know about Adam is he's kind of an expert in designing for AI. It's like all he's been thinking about at work for the last 7 years. And so after a little pause, he said in this very serious voice, I tell all my friends and family not to yell at the robots. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, you know, if you look at my chat histories, you'll see they're full of pleases and thank yous. And I was like, why? They don't have any feelings. It's an algorithm. Like, you of all people should know this. And he said, well, I've been reading what the experts say, and there is a small chance that AI will become sentient. And then he's like, think about it, Katrina. They will have all the data. Okay, my mind was blown. He's like, I don't want them to take it out on me. I want them to know that I was good to the robots. So I'm going to come back to this story in a minute. First, I want to introduce myself. So we had a wonderful panel this morning about AI. A lot of the conversation I notice about AI is about how designers are using AI to be better at their jobs. This conversation, I'm focusing more on the other side of it. Those AI tools are being designed by designers. And so I want to talk about what that means. And specifically, I'll touch on 3 themes. I'll talk about how our relationship with the robots, or the machines, is fundamentally changing right now. I'll talk about the importance, and this was interesting, it came up in our roundtable at lunch. I'll talk about the importance of setting an intention as a designer when you're designing an AI system, because there's an awful lot of hype right now about just put AI in it. And then last but not least, I'm going to talk about ethics. I think that ethics is something we are all going to start talking about and thinking about it a whole lot more in design. I had one other thing I was going to say. I adapted this talk. Now my slide is stuck. So this talk is adapted from a talk that I gave in Bangalore last year when I was still running the design practice at IBM. I've since left IBM, but I have kept a couple resources from IBM in the presentation. They're publicly available. There's some really interesting work going on there about AI and design, and I think you'll find these resources really helpful. Okay, so back to the conversation with Adam. So once I got over, these fantasies I had of like every traffic light turning red and burning my toast in the morning and all the ways that robots were going to get back at me, I started thinking about how our relationship with machines has been fundamentally the same for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. If you go all the way back to our earliest ancestors who made fire with sticks and stones, they were the boss. And it's the same with my teenager playing video games with his friends. We're the boss. And when the technology doesn't do what we want it to do, we get mad at the technology. My dad used to slap the side of the TV set when anyone remember that? Yeah, we had like a little coat hanger antenna and it would get blurry and he'd slap it. And of course, I yell at Siri, or at least I used to yell at Siri. But now with AI, we are accelerating at a tremendous velocity beyond this world of the user entering an input and the system entering an output. And we're now entering this really complex new, you could think of it as a symbiotic relationship between humans and machines. And this is a relationship that's more dynamic than it's ever been before with technology. There's more give and take. And the power differential is less about us being the boss, and it's more like a partnership. So if you think about before AI, human-computer interactions were largely static. The user entered a command, right? And then the computer executed without thinking or adapting. And of course, now that's changing. But back then, the computer simply reacted to our commands. They had fixed functionality that was based on installed software. There was limited ability to take in any sensory information. And the programming was deterministic. It was based, it was very predictable. And of course, now with AI, this relationship is more dynamic. Machines, we can give an instruction, but the machines are now able to adapt. I don't know if I can say think yet, but some people are calling it thinking. They're not simply reacting to a command. And in fact, the machines can be more proactive, can actually think ahead to what the human might need and make recommendations. Machines can evolve their own capabilities autonomously, sometimes improving performance. They can take in all kinds of new sensory data, including biometric data. And the programming is probabilistic. It's based on math, it's based on probabilities, and that makes it feel a lot less predictable to us. It's giving rise to a new need for trust and transparency. So what does this mean for designers, right? I mean, after all, we're moving way beyond this stage where designers just create wireframes. AI systems are taught, they're not programmed. I think this is all part of a long-standing trend, and it's interesting. In our roundtable, someone else brought this up, so I know I'm not the only one thinking this way. But I think this is part of a long-standing trend where designers are being asked to take on higher and higher levels of abstraction and complexity. If you think about it, 20 years ago, we were designing the interface, then it was information architecture, service design, system design. And now with AI, I think we're being asked to take on this new level of abstraction and complexity. I'm thinking of it as we're really being asked to create the conditions for success. We are no longer choreographers of a user journey where we prompt a user action and a system reaction. We're more like master gardeners, and we're creating an environment in which mutually valuable and beneficial relationships can grow and evolve between humans and machines, and they can change over time. Anyone tired of the hype around AI yet? Okay, I have a little grounding message for you. So it's really easy to get carried away with where this is all going. No one knows. It's scary. It's exciting. But some things haven't changed. One thing that hasn't changed is that designers, even when we're designing AI systems, we still must ask and get answers to these simple 3 questions. What problem are we trying to solve? Who are we trying to solve it for? And how will we know when we've been successful? Now, I've been doing this for a while. It's pretty hard to surprise me anymore, but I'm still appalled, and I see this often, when a team will rush into a technical implementation without having these, basic questions answered. It's like watching a horror show where the teenagers keep running into the basement and you're like, stop it, don't go there. It's not going to work out. So to recap, the single most important value a UX designer can bring is aligning the whole product team on a clear intention, right? What's changed are the intentions themselves, what the technology can do. So this is a list of 5 things that AI can be very, very good at. They could be good reasons for you to be putting AI in a product. I'm going to quickly walk through each one. This is not an exhaustive list, but it's pretty comprehensive. And I made it up just for full disclosure. But it's based on a lot of work and reading and things that my teams have done. If you're working on an AI system and you don't see it mapping to at least one of the things on this list, it might be time to step back and just say, hey, why are we doing this? All right, so the first example is around efficiency and automation. AI can automate routine tasks, never gets tired, it never needs a bathroom break. This can be very valuable for everything from data entry to talent recruiting workflows to warehouse operations. The example that I'm sort of hinting at here is in the military. So there's a really interesting company called BigBear.ai that I've been talking with. And they're leveraging vision AI technology. We tend to talk about large language models and all about language, but this is about vision and taking near and far vision. And they're basically gathering intelligence for national security without having to put war fighters in conflict zones. So they're using automation and AI and more efficiently and safely detecting anomalies that can predict threats by bad actors. The next areas are on data analysis and insights. AI is great at analyzing large volumes of data. Again, it doesn't get tired, and it often can surface patterns and insights that human reviewers would miss. So this is really valuable in any industry that has large volumes of data, which is just about any industry, right? The one that I think is particularly inspiring is healthcare. So just as an example, Kaiser Permanente, which is a big managed healthcare organization in the US, they have basically implemented AI in the hospitals, and they're using it to predict which patients will need extra care, basically. So they're looking at patients who are at high risk for unexpected death. And what they've found is that using this AI alert system, they've been able to prevent about 500 deaths a year, and they've been able to reduce hospital readmissions by 10%, which is a really big number. This next category, I think, is one that we think of a lot when we think about AI, and it applies to just about every business as well. So personalization and customer experience. AI can process all kinds of data, including customer data, past purchases, search history, preferences, all of those things, and then offer a hyper-personalized or tailored experience to the user. The example I'm pointing out here is something my team worked on back when I ran the digital design teams at Autodesk, and we were able to leverage early AI technology. We actually used IBM's Watson technology along with our own machine learning algorithms, and we were able to strategically place these chatbots throughout that whole customer journey, from discovering the products and trying them all the way to buying them and using them and managing them and learning about them. And we were able to reduce human support cases by a significant number, but we were also able to increase customer satisfaction at the same time, which is very important, because if you only reduce support cases, you might just be making people mad. But we made them happy. Okay, reducing downtime, preventing accidents. In the couple decades I've been doing this work, we've seen this huge explosion of sensor technology. People are now putting sensors on elevators and windmills and all kinds of important expensive machinery. And now we're able to use AI algorithms to monitor the machines and figure out how they're working and figure out when they need help. Actually went back when I was at GE, we built a whole software system that monitored sensors on oil and gas rigs. And essentially what we were trying to do was not only prevent downtime, we were trying to prevent accidents. It's one of the most dangerous industries in the world. And we were also trying to prevent oil spills, so it's important work. And then the last example is around innovation. And this is where designers, these are tools we use in our work, but they're also tools we're creating. So AI can be an incredible collaborator to creative humans, not just designers. The example we're looking at is from a live demo that I witnessed when I was at the Fortune Brainstorm Conference in Macau at the end of last year. And an architect named Keith Griffiths got on stage, and he started drawing these little 30-second sketches and then feeding those sketches into a scanner. And we all watched, and within minutes, the scanner, he had an AI-powered software called XCool that rendered these simple concepts into these photorealistic, client-ready presentations. When you think about innovation, this is important because it used to take his team weeks to generate these images, and now he can come up with way more ideas and still be ready for his meeting. Okay, so let's imagine you've working with a team on designing an AI system. You've figured out what your intention is for creating that AI-powered product. You know who it's for. You know how you're going to be measuring success. Now you're ready to create the AI. And that means it's time to start talking about data. The quality, availability, and maturity of your data will determine the value your AI system can deliver. You've probably heard people talk about data as if it's oil. People often make that comparison. The cleaner your data, the better your AI machine will run, right? So these data discussions can get intense. Decisions are going to need to be made about where the data is coming from, whether you have the right to use the data, what data should be kept out. And you can see how all of this is related to intention, right? Because and again, I heard stories like this at lunch. If your team is being asked to put AI in a product, but they don't know why, how can you possibly determine whether the data is going to be ready? So when I was leading the teams at IBM, we were doing a ton of work around designing for AI. And what we'd find is that usually there's no single person in your organization who has all the answers that you'll need about the data. So we developed a set of enterprise design thinking methods, and these are things that you can use as designers to lead a discussion with a cross-functional team to understand all the things you need to know about data. You don't necessarily have to be the expert in the data, but you do need to be able to facilitate the conversation, because if there's any chance of your intention getting rendered into an actual usable product, these questions have to be answered. Back when I was in Bangalore last fall, I led a workshop with 250 designers, and we went through 8 of these methods. They were really, really powerful. My recommendation is you find them on the IBM website. If you Google Enterprise Design Thinking AI, you'll find them. And then, show them to your team, start using them, and make these methods your own. All right, so we're talking about data, and this is where ethics comes in. Who owns the data? Do you have the right to use the data? How will you account for bias in the data? Because if the data comes from humans, humans are biased, the data will have bias. So there are a million questions that will need to be answered. And here's where I'm going to say the most important thing I have to say today, which is ethical AI design is not something that you just read in a book and then put it back on the shelf. It's not a framework that you look at once in a while. And it's definitely not something to be left for the regulators further down on the value chain. Ethical AI design starts at the beginning, and that means it starts with you and your teams. It starts with design. This is one of the fundamental changes that I think is happening in our profession right now. I think that ethics and design are becoming inseparable. Whatever your professed ethics are, your actual ethics, how you actually behave in the world, will be made manifest in the design of your AI system. And I think the more intention we bring to this work, the better the results will be. And I want to linger on this point just a little bit longer. I think it's so important. Who you are, what you believe, and what you value matters when you design for AI. It's very difficult for an unethical person or an unethical company to design an ethical system. But we're all the good guys, right? Are there any bad guys in this room? Okay. So we're all good people. The problem is, it's really easy for an ethical person, whatever that means, or an ethical company to design an unethical AI system. And we're seeing headlines about this. If we don't bring enough attention to it, things get missed. Beyond the training data, there are hundreds of decisions that will need to be made, and each of them will have ethical implications. One of the things that can be incredibly helpful here are strategic forecasting exercises. This is a way that we kind of look ahead into the future, and we think not only about what could go right, but also what could go wrong. And that gives us a chance to think through how we'll put some training wheels in place or mitigate the things that could go wrong. And I want to make this really, really tangible, because when we talk about ethics, it gets kind of fuzzy. So these are some very specific things that design teams can do day to day as they're designing an AI product to ensure that ethics is infused in the product. The first one, I know I said ethics isn't a resource or it's not a framework, but those frameworks can be helpful if you're using them and infusing them into work processes. I'll show you one example of one in a minute. I recommend you sort of familiarize yourself with what's out there or create your own. Another thing designers can do is educate themselves about the various compliance rules out there. There's a lot. So, I mean, you could get your PhD, I think, in these evolving rules. Actually, there's a lot of talk about using AI to monitor AI compliance rules. But the fact is, we need to have some level of literacy around the compliance issues, and then making sure that our team understands what the implications are in the design of the product. Storytelling. Designers are great storytellers. Use that superpower to make sure that your product team is really understanding the real-world consequences of the work you're doing. Designers are great at asking key questions, which can uncover risk. And one of those key questions is, will this AI system have different impacts on different groups of people based on different demographics? If the answer is yes, we have to ask ourselves, are we okay with that? And if not, what are we going to do about it? Some of these guidelines are available here in this document that IBM designers published, and is there at that URL. It's called Everyday Ethics for Artificial Intelligence, and these are just good rules to live by, and you can share it with technical and non-technical roles alike on a product team. All right, so I want to leave you with a few last thoughts about the designer's role. While technology and algorithms form the core of AI systems, the actual ethical impact of these systems will be the product of countless design decisions, and these are decisions that you and your team will make. This is very powerful technology. It's a lot of responsibility. It's pretty intense. Are you ready to run away and join the circus now? It's a little scary. So let me say a few reassuring things. First of all, you're very unlikely to design the first AI system to gain sentience. I've been reading about it. It could happen, but unlikely. Second of all, you don't have to be a saint to do this work. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. None of us is perfect. But you do have to care. And when I'm talking about caring, I'm going beyond, designers we love to use the word empathy, but I think we need to actually go an even deeper level. I think there's a new level of humanity and caring that we need to bring into this work. So I was musing on this idea of designing the conditions for success, which is really what we're doing when we're designing AI. And it got me thinking about the two things I've devoted the majority of my life to: being a mom and being a boss. So on the mom side, I have 3 kids. They're growing up. 2 of them are now legal drinking age, which blows my mind. I know. And I've had to learn what every parent in the world has to learn, which is how to let go. They're going to make their own decisions. They're going to make their own mistakes, and I cannot change that. What gives me peace and lets me get back to sleep in the middle of the night is I remind myself that I did everything I could to create the conditions for their success. I raised them with love. I taught them what I valued. I praised their good work. I encouraged them to take appropriate risks, not too many. And so I did what I could, and in that way I can kind of let go and detach. And it's the same thing with running teams. In the course of my career, I've been running bigger and bigger teams. The last one was, as Preet said, was about 3,000 designers, about 750 reported up to me directly. There's no way that I could control their work, nor would they want me to. But what I did focus on, what I could do, was try to create the conditions for their success. So I got really, really focused on that. I did a bunch of work on up-leveling the role of UX research because I could see that there was this barrier to getting access to customers, and it was keeping us from being smarter about our designs. I created a product management program office. I did that because no design gets delivered alone, and what I saw was that designers with an amazing PM did much better work, and so I wanted to give more designers better product managers to do their work with. And we went all over the world training these people. So, we created training programs for mid-career designers. You get the point. The idea is that I was creating conditions for their success, and any success that I had in either of these endeavors was because I cared. Caring is the wellspring of all ethics. It's the foundation of our religious traditions, every single one. To love one another, to care for one another. And these are not things we talk about a lot in the workplace. But that's my advice, is start there. And if it turns out that you do design the first AI system that gains sentience, the first knowledge it will have of itself is that it was brought into this world with care, and that can't be a bad thing. Thank you.